Well, the Mishnah told us that if you have an oven which has two pots, we call it a kira, and I drew a little picture of it here. Well, there's two ways of heating that oven. You're using it actually as a stove, so it's the stove top where you're putting the pots. There's two ways. You're either using straw, which we call kashugvava, or you're using wood, which is eitzim, or gefes, which is mark. So those are two categories. It's kashugvava or gefes veitzim. Now, we had two ways of learning the Mishnah. The first way that we learned the Mishnah, let's call it Lishais Tanan. This was the way we learned it, the Mishnah, just when we learned the Mishnah without the Gemara. And we said that the Mishnah is telling us that if someone would come Erev Shabbos and want to put food on the oven, well, what was he allowed to put on? So we said, well, if the oven was burning with kashuk vava, that's right here with straw. Let's make that a little better. He's using straw. So then he's allowed to put anything on it. There was no restrictions. If he's using gefes veitzim, he's using a substantial type of fuel, then it depends. It's either the fuel is still in there and it's still burning and it's not covered over. We call that einoi gara fekatim. It's not shoveled out and it's not covered over with ash. Then we made an X here. That means that you cannot put anything on that. However, if it is shoveled out, it is garaf and it is katam. So then the Mishnah says that that's a machlekes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, and Beis Hillel says that you can put on whatever you want, whether it's hot water, we call chamin, or tavshil, which is a stew, a cooked food. Beis Shammai says that you can only put on chamin, you can only put on hot water. Then the Mishnah concludes that there's a machlekes concerning chazara as well, which means you left it there from Friday afternoon onto Shabbos, and it's already on Shabbos, and you took the pot off the fire. Are you allowed to put these pots back on the fire? So Beis Hillel says yes, you can return it. Beis Shammai says you can't return it. Noitlin v'le machzirin, it's called. Okay, that was the Lishais Tanan. And in summary, if you have an oven that's burning with the fuel is gefes veitzim, so for that, Beis Hillel says that you're allowed to put food on that fire on Erev Shabbos only if the coals have been raked out, shoveled out, or if it's covered over. And Beis Shammai says the only thing you can put on there is hot water. Let's go to the other option. This is called lahachzir tanan. That the Mishnah is not talking about Erev Shabbos. Erev Shabbos, you can put on whatever you want. What we're talking about is if on Shabbos you come and you want to take the pot off the fire and put it back on, so then we have to see there's conditions. Well, again, there's two ways of heating the oven. There's kasha gvava. We said if it's kasha gvava, you're always allowed to put back onto the fire if it's burning with straw. Again, I'll write in straw if you don't remember. Chamin we said is hot water. Just write water. And tavshil is a stew. So you can put in whatever, you can return whether it's hot water or stew onto that fire. Okay, let's say it's lit with gefes veitzim. Let's say it's lit with mark or wood, which is a substantial fire. So will you be allowed to return onto this fire on Shabbos? I know that Erev Shabbos you can put it there. Shehiyah, which means to let it wait from Friday afternoon onto Shabbos, that's for sure mutter, that's for sure permissible. But what about once you took it off? Are you allowed to put it back? Well, it depends. If it's ein agara fekatim, that means it's not shoveled out and it's not covered over. The fire, the coals are still inside. So then we made an X over here. You're not allowed to do anything. If it is gara fekatim, when I say anything, that's a mistake. Anything means you're not allowed to put back anything onto it. But from Erev Shabbos, there was no problem. If it is gara fekatim, that means you did take out the coals, then you're even allowed to return. But what are you allowed to return? You're allowed to return hot water and the tavshil and the stew, according to Beis Hillel. And according to Beis Shammai, the only thing you're allowed to put back on is hot water. However, if you're going to put back, if you had a stew on the fire, which you were allowed, you're not allowed to return it to the fire once you took it off. That would be the main opinions here. Then the Mishnah concludes and it says, what about chazara, returning? Well, this is difficult to understand because that's what we were talking about the whole time. Well, Beis Hillel says you're allowed to return, which of course means chamin v'tavshil. And Beis Shammai says that you're not allowed to return. What are you not allowed to return? You're not allowed to return the tavshil, like we just said. Chamin, Beis Shammai says you are allowed to return. If you're talking about leaving there Erev Shabbos, then you can leave everything. But returning, we already said everything. That's the Gemara's question.